All right, Paul will not be here tonight, and neither will Ed, as has family issues going on, so he's not going to be able to make it probably tonight here. So we'll get started with community development. I'm not going to do the three and we'll get started.
Thanks, Megan. Okay. Subject to requested legislation, economic development grant, highway lounge. And I do see that the graders are here this evening, and after we have our meeting, they'll probably come up and then speak a little bit towards this. Prepared ordinance for an economic development grant for the highway lounge located at 34 Diamond Court, Southeast Massillon, Ohio. Owner Eric Greger is requesting funds for property improvements. The grant will cover a portion of the cost for those improvements and will be for an amount of $5,000. Dave? Hello. Do you have one of those sheets where you show us the points? Thank you. Okay.
Could we have Eric or Holly, the one who want to talk to Mike? They applied for a grant. They recently purchased the highway. And I guess at this point it would be offer them the opportunity to speak about what they're, and something they want to do some good investment within the property. So, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Dave. Yeah, we've been working hard on the inside of it, and we're looking to, beautify the aesthetics of the outside. Some brick pointing, painting, some new exterior doors, some signage. It's really the gist of it, Trying to fall in scope with the, historic district as far as the color scheme and whatnot.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Greger? Linda?
Can I ask how much you've put into the
Microphone,
property?
please.
Can I ask how much you've put into the property of your own funds over and above the purchase?
Right now, we're about $15,000 over the purchase price. And we're looking to do another 15 to 30, depending on, the result of this.
Anybody else? Linda?
Have you spoken to Massillon Development Foundation regarding the outside aesthetics of the building and what assistance they might be able to provide?
I've been in contact with them, got a PDF as far as the general, guidelines, conditions. As far as the intrinsic details, no, I haven't worked that out. As far as color palette and that type.
No, I'm saying dollars.
Yeah, I talked to them, briefly, but I wasn't aware that, those funds were available.
I think that's the Massillon Main Street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Massillon Main Street, forgive me.
I can give you contact numbers for someone to talk about that.
They're actually doing that type of thing for several other commercial buildings downtown where they will assist with paintings or painting awnings, doorways, those types of things.
That'd be wonderful.
Any other? Mike?
Do you have or will you have any outdoor seating?
We've been in talks with Dave in the city as far as what your plans are going forward with Postal and Diamond Court. Right now, we don't personally own any property in those alleys, so there's liabilities as far as, the alcohol board is concerned. So we have to have some discussions about, ostensibly leasing some property from the city. But yeah, it's in our plans.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Without Paul being here, Dave,
No, I mean, Paul will probably want to give
first reading.
Yeah, first reading, I understand that. We're asking for $5,000.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
The second piece of legislation is subject to requested legislation, a resolution to accept partial number 603010 vacant lot Orange Street, northwest from Shirley. The donation has been approved by the Parks and Rec Board and will be added for potential use at Fondles Park. Is there anybody from administration who has anything on this? Thanks, Dave.
I think you see, you should have a little map on the back. It's not a great map, but you see outlined down the bottom, this small parcel sliver there. That's the parcel we're talking about. The owners of the property, it's not delinquent or anything, but the owners contacted Steve with regards to donating it to the city. Steve contacted me. It kind of makes sense, and we own property next to it, and they're willing to give it to us at this point. And the Parks Board approved it, so we add it to the actual bottom of the park. FYI, if you look at that map, and I know it's hard to read, but there's a little sliver next to it on the, if you're looking at it, it'd be on the top, you can see that. That little sliver is delinquent. I think it's been delinquent, I checked into that. I don't know. Hang on a second. That's been delinquent since 2006. So what we can do is, once we obtain, if we do obtain that property from the donation, then we can do a side lot and pick up that property to other people.
Linda?
Is there anything on that property right now, or is it just vacant land?
It's vacant.
Any other questions? Again, more than likely, we'll give this a first reading on Monday night. Okay. That's all for community development.
Environmental, Dave,
I have nothing.
health and welfare, Linda,
No, I have nothing.
Parks and Rec.
I have nothing.
Police and fire, Jason, I know yours kind of goes, it went to finance, but I'll let you talk about it during finance. Frank, do you have anything other than that one legislation?
No, just that.
Okay. Public utilities,
Nothing at this time.
rules of courts.
I have nothing.
All right, I have nothing pending streets and highways other than, just for a heads up. Next week, Amber just told me that, the other ordinance we gave with an easement, for Westburg Estates is ready to go, and we'll bring that forward for a vote next week. Does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay, that's all I have, streets and highways. And now we got finance. We have two prior pieces, I believe. The first one is the income tax. That was given first reading last week. I did speak with Ed today. He said, just as an update, he spoke with Anita from the state today, and was told that if we move forward on this legislation, that there will not be any kind of new state action opening up or anything along those lines. They just want to make sure that we are careful in legislation that we do, and make sure that we continue to increase our revenue and don't do things that stupid to get ourselves back in fiscal emergency. So there won't be any repercussions for the state, according to Anita, is what Ed did discuss with her today. But
Will they be providing us that information in writing?
I did not ask him that. He was on the way to the hospital. His mother was in the hospital today. So it was kind of a short, brief conversation, but he did want to pass that information on to us.
Is there an opportunity for any further questions to be asked to?
Sure, we can do that, and maybe we can get some things to Ed, because you can already speak with her. Maybe you can get a little writing for us for next general meeting or next work session as well.
Thank you.
Maybe we can start emailing some questions and you can follow up with these various other issues. Anything further on the income tax piece? Okay, and it looks like the other pending one, I wasn't here last week, was with the financing and the radios, it looks like it was given first reading. Anybody give me anybody remember why?
Yes, it was because it was the determination whether it should come from the capital fund or from the general fund. That was the 21.5 and the 178, the radios and the ambulance. I'm not sure if there was any further conversation.
Was anybody looking into that? Do you know? I just wasn't here last week, so I got.
I'm not sure who was actually assigned to look
And
into
you're gonna look
that.
into it? Okay. We'll just have to have a follow up on it next week. It was just a bit of a bind today. So, all right, we have a couple new ones. First one is Mr. Harris's brought this forward. It is to increase the EMS fund from 10% to 20%. Harris, I will let you speak on that. Go ahead.
Yes, I've talked at length with the chief about this. I'm going to let him talk mostly about it, but in general, when 10% was allocated to the EMS fund, it was a different time. It was obviously several years ago. Costs have gone up. What it was originally designed for now is only funding the cost for an ambulance every 3 years. And if we continue to do that, we'll be way behind the power curve when it comes to things like power cots and the replacement of other vital equipment that if we don't get a grant, we'll be in the same place we were this year with the having to buy ambulance early and taking money from the general fund. So, Chief, I'm going to bring you up and let you talk a little bit about it.
Good evening, all. As Mr. Harris said, we did have a discussion. The discussion surrounded what we were trying to do in 2010 and 2011 with the 10% capital fund. 10% capital fund was used for a number of things. Over the course of time, it replaced a radio when we were really short on cash. It actually was 10% match for the tanker at $29,600 to spend. Out of that, it was used for $47,000 was used for air packs, SCBA. All of those relate to EMS, again, because the tanker was used for rescue. It had the jaws of life on it, and so we used that for that. Air packs and RIT team deployment was the training that was part of the $471,000 grant, and that was that 10% as well was brought forth from the EMS fund again, because we use those things for EMS, active shooter, things like that, rescue operations. So we were able to do that with EMS. More characteristically, since that time, because we went to the Type 1 ambulances, really the 10% EMS fund is used for ambulance purchases. The ambulance purchases are made every 2 years. And again, the exception is this year, and again, we've discussed that at length regarding the hospital and mileage and things like that. So the 10% match has served us well. Again, after we purchase this ambulance, there will be a very small amount left, but again, we'll have 2 years to build it at 10%. I guess there is some concern or some dialogue regarding, which do we do? Do we use the general fund, the 1401 capital account? Do we put it into the EMS capital fund? And those are things that are decided well above my pay grade. I think that there's conversation on both sides. And I will say this, the Type 1 ambulances are about $170,000. Again, we got our power cots with grant dollars from the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, Community Health Foundation, and then we purchased 2 of them outright. So at present, we're sitting well with those. And we'll continue to write for grants. I mean, grants not only cover ambulances, but we'll be writing one for a ladder truck here shortly, and we'll be writing for operational equipment needs as those come out. We already have a grant in process that should be decided in the next couple of weeks for a bariatric cot, power cot, and some CPR assist devices. So that was what we went for late last year. And again, that match we're hoping would be able to come out of the EMS fund for those things. Those are all EMS related items. And so if and when we are awarded that grant, I'll be coming back. So.
Just so everybody else knows, Chief, how much is it to replace a power cot?
Power cots are about $42,000. Again, the Type 1 ambulances are about $170,000. The move to the Type 1 from the Type 3 ambulance was done so that you can take the boxes off and just re-chassis them. The boxes have a much longer life than do the chassis themselves. They'll really go bad and start to wear and tear after about 8 to 10 years. And the boxes on the Type 1 ambulances have been lasting, in the communities about 20 years. So.
What's the life of the power cut?
The life of a power cot is warranted at 6 to 7 years, but they've already got 14 and 15 years out of them. So we're expecting that, we have them serviced biannually according to manufacturer's guidelines, and so we believe that we're doing everything that we can to extend the life of those.
I had thought we had purchased a few power cots over the last few years. Do you recall when those were purchased previously?
We purchased them all to go in all at once. So when Community Health Foundation gave us the grant, and also the Bureau of Workers' Compensation gave us the grant, we were forced to go to all power cots at the same time, because if we did not do that and we had two-man assist cots with power cots, Bureau of Workers' Compensation would have denied any claims involving non-power cots. So we did that all at the same time, and I believe it was in 2016.
So that's a item that is typically purchased by grants. That would be, even going forward, it would be likely that if you would apply for grants for those purposes, that would be something that would fall within that category.
Not exactly, Mrs. Lipton. Grant dollars are spent on different things. AFG grant itself prioritizes level 1, 2, and 3. This year, power cot system, I believe, is going from a priority 1 to a priority 2, and priority 2s are not funded unless priority 1s are all funded. So if you write a priority 2 grant, you're least likely to get one. And that's because of the influx of all the power cots. But what our purpose is to try and get those to be sustainable. And I think that's what the federal government encourages also. That's why they're backing that law. They put priority 1 elsewhere. In terms of Community Health Foundation and Bureau of Workers' Comp, you could be correct on that, but Bureau of Workers' Comp is only a $40,000 maximum grant. And so that would cover the cost of one. And certainly if we needed to replace one in a hurry, we would try to avail ourselves of those types of things while scrambling to arrange the money. But it's not necessarily true that those are routinely supplied by grant dollars.
If we purchased them all in 2016, why would we need to replace them anytime soon?
I didn't suggest that we did.
Oh, I thought that you said that we purchased the power cots all at the same time.
We did.
In 2016.
Yes, we did. They're working fine. We maintain them. We expect to get a long shelf life out of them. The manufacturer will warranty them until it's a 6 or 7 year warranty, and then the expectation is that they're going to be outdated. Nonetheless, there have been other communities that have had out-of-date power cots that are still routinely serviced, and they function for 14 to 15 years.
I do notice that this has not been signed off on by the auditor's office, and I know that Ms. Bond would like to speak tonight and address council based on this ordinance.
Well, I just wanted to add that you can, and clarify that you can pay anything from the general fund. You can transfer from the general fund to the 1401 fund at any time you want to. When you do put the money into the 1401 fund, that money is restricted and can only be used for ambulance, for the EMS, or power cots, excuse me, or anything else associated with that. I also wanted to let you know that the 1401 fund for the EMS will probably end up at about $110,000. And next year's estimated revenue is about $120,000, so it would be about $230,000 at the end of 2020. So 10% has been sufficient. The auditor was not willing to sign it because of the approximately $100,000 that would be lost in the general fund.
how much is generated to the general fund every year?
About $1 million approximately. You mean for the EMS?
Yes.
We're on target right now to, well, he's at 81%, and we should hit about a little over.
I think we need, and I think probably most of the council will say, is it possible to get us the numbers since we've instituted this of what goes to the general fund based on what goes to the EMS fund? Everybody probably want to see.
Well, I know in 2018, it was 853,434 and 94,826 in the 1401.
Can we see how it's progressed over the years? I
Yeah,
don't need it tonight, but if we could get it, I think council members have some questions about this, and seeing the numbers and how that's going to work would be helpful for the council. Mr. Harris?
When the chief brought the request for legislation for the ambulance and the radios, he brought us a sheet with those numbers already printed out.
That was just for the EMS side of it. I'd like to see what the general fund hit would be and what the change would be as well. I think we'd all like to see what we're generating in the general fund and how that's going to change as well. Did it have both? Okay. I don't know, maybe it did. I don't remember. I don't have it in front of me. Anybody else want to comment, question?
That was my concern. What is the dollar impact from 10% to 20% with the increase? So, yeah, if you can provide us that would be great.
And I know that I spoke with Mr. Manson and Mr. Lewis, and they also wanted to see some numbers and have some concerns. You know, we're looking at reducing the general fund a couple different ways right now, and we have the meetings for the budget coming up as well. And I think we need to take our time on this, on the income tax, on the possibility of raises, and really determine how this is all going to impact the general fund going forward. We got a lot that we're talking about, thinking about, we're missing some numbers tonight. I don't believe I'm ready to sign off on this as a finance committee member. I think we need to see the numbers as well. This is the first time a lot of people are seeing this, and I think we just want to rock that up. Ms. Litton?
As a finance committee member as well, I fall in that same category. In order for us to consider this, we definitely would need to know the impact of the general fund. And if we're going to be looking at the additional funds going into the EMS fund, what exactly would the chief be looking to use that for? I guess I like the idea of the versatility of the funds being in the general fund and then the allocation at the point that something is needed, as with the radios or the ambulance he currently has in legislation, being considered at the time, knowing exactly what those funds will be used for, but allowing the versatility of those dollars that aren't used or needed in the EMS to be used for other purposes throughout the city. So I wouldn't be signing on it either.
I do agree. I think Ms. Bonk made a good point. Extending this to 20% does restrict those funds to specific things. So we need to probably mull that over and see how that would affect things as well. And that wasn't something I actually thought of until she said it. So I think that's something we'll all need to think about. Any other comments?
My only worry is not necessarily this year or even next year, but maybe 3 years down the road, that say we need another ambulance before the turnover, and say we don't have a carryover in the general fund. We don't have money allocated to EMS related issues, and we need an ambulance, or we need this, that, or the other, and we don't have it. Then we have to depend on grants, and I don't want to be in that situation.
I understand your concern, but I think we all are a little also concerned about, the fact that we do have a carryover now, and we need to make sure that we protect that. We don't hit our general fund too hard. I don't want to limit funds too much that we won't be able to use them for something other than EMS if it's necessary. So I think we just need to look at the numbers and continue this conversation. I did notice it's not signed off by the mayor's office either. I don't know if either of you have a comment, Mayor or Dave, about this tonight.
Good evening, members of the council. I did not sign it.
As you can recall, for the capital budget, the capital piece of our budget, we are inching up 1% at a time. So we are trying to get our capital budget to be larger. And so I'm just not comfortable going from 10% to 20% at this time. Again, those dollars that we have in carryover, we can use those for purchases such as an ambulance or radios or power cots. But it does restrict the funds, and we've never, the economy is going to go down at some point, and you don't want to have that 20% sitting out there restricting those funds when we may need to pay for salaries. So that was a concern of mine, and that's why I did not sign off. If there is if the council wants to increase that number, I would suggest that you do it in very small increments and take baby steps to get there. But I would suggest just holding at this point because we have a lot of infrastructure needs that we need to do throughout the city, and I would rather put those funds that we currently will be having come in to infrastructure needs, and then when we do need to vehicle replacement, if we don't have the exact amount of money that we need, we go to the carryover for that.
Thank you. Okay, I think we should all continue the discussion on this one. Keep it in mind, and we will keep talking about it, okay? Next piece of legislation I have is accepting a donation from the Robert and Carolyn David for the Mayor's Kindness Campaign of $1,000. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. After that is we're appropriating the $1,000 donation from the Davids into the Kindness Campaign supplies. Any comments or questions on that? Next piece of legislation just goes along with the Economic Development Grant, the $5,000 grant to the Hideaway Lounge. We'll obviously keep this moving right along with the community development piece, so that'll probably be given first reading next week. And finally, I have one transfer from City Hall and Public Buildings. This is $1,110 from supplies, materials, and postage. We're moving $600 into PERS and $510 into Medicare to realign the 2019 budget to have sufficient funds for expenses for PERS and Medicare for janitorial staff. Any questions or concerns? Okay. I think we did get a new updated map for the streetscape tonight. Dave or Bear, would you like to comment on that?
We did comment on this last week. If you look at the map here on Erie Street, the map that we had previously, it did not include the sidewalk in front of Keller's office, which is included, and that was the confusion from about 2 weeks ago. So we just wanted to clear that up with council.
Thank you. Thank you. Question? Rita?
Mayor? Yes. I saw, and I'm not that crazy about social media all the time anyway, but can you tell us what the cost of the M's are going to be? Because I'm sure you saw that as well, and that cannot possibly be
No,
right.
that is not true.
Good. So I'd like you to say that out loud so everybody knows.
That comment, if you saw it on Facebook, that these cost so much money, that is not an accurate account. And if you want to know the cost of the M's, we will get that for you. But it really is a signature piece that we're trying to promote. This is when you enter Massillon, you are in Massillon. It's just really a pride kind of insignia there. And then I also saw comments about the trees in the center. And that really is, you have to have some greenery downtown. And these are from a planner. This wasn't designed by our staff. It was designed by a planner from OHM. And it's just to add some depth to a downtown. And those trees are not going to be ones that grow out into the, in fact, I made sure that today when we have our Monday morning meeting about the Imagine project,
that those trees are going to be appropriate for now. Another question, and how will the Christmas parade and the McKinley
I saw
parade
that too.
be affected by the trees in the middle of the street?
So the band will just split. It'll just, half will go down one side and half will go down the other. It really isn't that hard. It's not that hard, but you know, I think everybody, when there's a new project, people will get anxiety and it's change, and so the band will just split. If there is a float, it'll have to go on one side or the other. It shouldn't be that difficult. But one of the important things is about this is that before you had to go to one end of the street or the other to cross over. Many people would just walk across the street and not go to the end. But this way, this is a crosswalk here where they can safely cross over. They still have to watch for traffic, but it will be helpful for those people that find it hard to get to one end of the street or the other. And again, the bump outs were designed to shorten the distance across the street. Many of our Mass Museum employees talked about, you know, possibly getting hit by a car as they were crossing over to come to work, and this will shorten their distance to cross the street.
I did want to mention that I actually have seen this map up in several of the businesses downtown, just to make sure that if anyone has any questions, they get the visual. If they're not on social media, it's something that's in a hard copy that they can actually see, so I appreciated seeing that.
We also passed out, Dave went around and he also passed out the map for parking. And I can tell you, if any of you were at the Fun Fest, you saw that if people want to get to a place, they will get to it, because the Fun Fest was jam-packed with families, and we are very pleased with that.
There's still going to be parallel parking on the...
Yes, I know that was a concern. We did at the very beginning of the planning stages we looked at angled parking, but on Lincoln Way, I just was not comfortable switching that to angled. Everybody had conversation in the meetings that we had, and it was a consensus that we stayed with the parallel parking. If I can just show you the blue and the yellow areas, this is really a highlight for the businesses that are downtown. The yellow signifies cafe patio space. So a business may want to put out maybe a table and 2 stools. And then the blue signifies larger patio space. So we're encouraging our businesses to put in outside seating. It's not a requirement, just an encouragement. Yes, sir.
So based on that, Mayor, you're saying these blue areas aren't necessarily exactly where they may end up being. They could be anywhere along the street, or these are specific spots that they would be available?
Those are specific spots available.
Okay, so you'd have to own a shop in front of one of those spots in order to be able to take advantage of that.
Well, and if you look, all the yellow, that is for cafe, and then the blue is for larger.
Right.
So
But
yes,
to get the larger, you've got to have your
That's
shop
correct.
has to be there.
that's correct.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming that larger space is because that's where the bump outs are, so there's gonna be a little more sidewalk area for people where it wouldn't be impeding the ingress and egress.
That's correct.
It looks as if there's only, what, a 4.5-foot difference between the larger patio space and the cafe space, not precluding any of those businesses along the route to put outside seating. Would just be how it's arranged.
I don't know about you, but when I go to a place, I love to sit outside if the weather's conducive. You know, it's just a different environment. It's very welcoming, and that's what we're trying to do with our downtown. I may add that Barb worked on the historic downtown buildings, and 91 of them are in the National Historic Registry. And so the goal is to have the buildings that you see where the cafes are to work on their 2nd and 3rd floors and renovate them for housing. And so that really creates a vibrant downtown. So everything we've done has been strategic to get to this point where, you know, we renovate the downtown,
And as I told you before, Mr. Dahl has bought several buildings, he's renovating those, and that's what happens when you do things like this. It sparks an interest, and then other people want to do things to their properties. So it's an exciting time for Massillon.
Claudia?
Will the bump outs be a problem for snow removal?
They will not, they'll just have to go around them just like they do now. And then we are preparing to do some lighting on City Hall Street as well to connect it to the museum. So you'll see some lights that are going to be hanging over, which will be very, very nice for the new museum, the renovated museum, and for City Hall Street.
Okay, any other questions for the mayor? All right, I will open it up at this point to comments from citizens and continue Paul's tradition of allowing citizens to address council during work sessions. So does anyone have anything that they'd like to say? Please make sure you sign your name and address on the paper provided as well. Okay, please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay, LG DeLuca, I live at 2954 Veterans Boulevard, Southeast Massillon. Legends of Massillon. I'm really happy with Massillon. Back in the older days, I worked here in Massillon, TIG and a bunch of other places. Know a lot of people here. I was listening to the mayor talk here about what she's going for streetscape, and I don't have all the time on limited time. I see it a lot different, and it's good to agree on disagree. I don't have any problem with that. But I did ask the mayor and Dave Maley to give me some records as to, and this is a very good, I think Joe and Sarah, all these people will say this is a good thing. I asked for the records, what businesses did the mayor, Kathy Katazzara, and Dave Maley bring personally, directly to the city of Massillon for all my residents? I did get a reply, because sometimes I didn't get a reply from there. But I thank you guys. I did get a reply from Bill Perini, he's a records information officer, so I went down the right route. And it said, Mr. DeLuca, business release. No such records exist per Ohio Public Records Act. We are under no obligation to create a record that does not exist, RC 149.001. And you know what I say to that? I say bullardy. And the reason I say that is, you guys probably all remember Ken Kohler, Budget Director Ken Kohler. You remember Larry Marcus, Economic Director. I sat in both offices, and this is a copy here of what, I have money at home. I had to come from Akron today. This is a copy from the Legends of Massillon. He gave me very much detail. I'd be happy to get a copy for anybody that wants it. It was given, okay? Now, this goes from 1996 to 2014. I just brought it because I was in a hurry, and I was looking really for Larry Marcus's. But Mr. Marcus gave me a list of all the businesses they brought, right? And this was under the mayor. And I appreciate that, Mayor. And it was, I think, whenever Mr. Kohler was here. He's no longer here. But I don't think that's a request that's, Dave, I don't think that's a request that's out of the thing for the Massillon people. I'm not trying to hash you there, but I want to know what we're doing. I've always felt the economic development has been really the weak link in the city of Massillon, Dave. And I know you're trying, because I see Dave around town. I was eating at Margaritas, and I eat at a bunch of other places. And Dave was around and doing some stuff. But I really just don't think that this request is out of the ordinary. So what I'll do is I'll give you a couple of days, the mayor and Mr. Malin, and then I'm going to ask that the people of Massillon round up some people so we can get the records we want, because it's been slow at best with Mr. Bill Perini, and he keeps saying I'm only part-time. Well, the city of Massillon isn't part-time citizens. We live here, we want a full-time person for our records department. And I do think we need a response on that. And I'm going to keep at it, like we're digging down the Mayor 7 streetscape, we keep digging. I'm going to keep digging and digging and digging until I get that information. So I would appreciate it sooner or later, not only for myself, but for all the other Massillon residents, and thank you. Thanks, Dave.
respond to that. We no longer keep those type of records. So the records that you can access are online. We're very transparent, Mr. DeLuca. All the reports that David does is online, and anyone can get those at any time. He just does not do the same reports that the other two gentlemen have done. Thank you.
Well, can I respond to that, since she mentioned my name? Can I respond to that, please?
Very briefly.
Okay, I'll be very brief. Mayor, I was told by your public information director today 2 or 3 times, okay? He said that you don't want to get the information out or something to this effect, okay? If it's still readily online, why did Mr. Brady said that he referred to the act that I just referred to? You're not being fair to me as a Massillon City resident, and I take a lot of a grain of salt with that, okay?
You asked if you could respond, we're not going to make it an argument.
Okay. No, I'm not making an argument, but I'm just stating what the Massillon residents want, and I'm one of them.
I've directed you online as the mayor to see if those records that you're looking for that.
I will go online. If they're not there, then I'll continue on with,
Okay.
on with my digging in the streetscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?